Hello and welcome to the live stream. Today we're just going to have a general Q&A. So if you've got any questions about tech, studio gear, anything else related to all the stuff I talk about, whatever the case may be, feel free to just drop it into the chat. I'll give you a little bit of a insight here. If ever you see me doing a general Q&A live stream, it usually means that I've got to 12 hours before we're due to go live, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to cover. So that's what this is. So if you've got any questions, as I say, drop them into the chat. As always, though, I have got a load of questions that have come in previously or things that we've been talking about recently. And I thought it might be useful to start off with something that came up literally 2 hours ago, because one of our Academy members is relocating somewhere and is looking to sort of change up from their current studio space to basically being on the road essentially for some time, and are thinking about how that's going to affect their content. So we're having this conversation about, you know, if previously you were doing things where you were kind of sitting down, a bit like I'm doing here, at a desk with, you know, tutorial style content, maybe integrating presentations and things like that. When you're on the road, if it's not so easy to do that, how about pivoting to some different style of content? And it got us into this question and this conversation, which really is as much about me as them, because I was, you know, giving out all this advice and then realizing, I'm not necessarily following my own advice here. So one of the situations that I'm in at the moment is that I'm obviously in this this green screen studio, which is my kids' playroom. We've just moved house relatively recently, so I'm just in a pretty temporary space here until I get my main studio complete. By the way, quick update on that. That's what my studio was looking like a few days ago. It is now completely painted, but yeah, it's all, I'm painting it grey. I'm putting some flooring down, some carpet down, and doing a few other things and decorating and so on. So yeah, finally got it all painted, but I've got to do things like hang the acoustic panels and whatever. But the point about this is I'm here in my sort of temporary studio space, and there's been this part of me that's been feeling like, I've got some videos to make, but I can't make them until I'm into the new studio. Well, the fact is, you know, I made the majority of my videos in the first year on YouTube was in this same virtual studio. You know, I was using the same green screen background, and it served me perfectly well to be cranking out, you know, a video a day like that. So why is it now that suddenly, when I've been used to having an actual physical studio and I'm in the middle of building out something, that I'm kind of reluctant to make videos using this virtual background? It's kind of a bit weird. I need to really slap myself on the face and wake up to it and think that, yeah, maybe I'm just procrastinating, or maybe this is just an excuse for not making more videos, when technically I've got all that I need to do it. That brings us on to also the other thing that we were talking about, which was this idea of making short form videos. Now, I've been saying for a while, I'm kind of like on and off with short form video in terms of creating it, not enthusiasm for it. I still think that, you know, I want to start doing more of it on my YouTube channel, but also on TikTok in particular. Those are the two sort of platforms, I guess, that I'm focused on, and also on LinkedIn as well. But I'm very sort of stop and start with it. And part of that is because, once again, I'm looking for this time to be fully ready to be, you know, creating the content. And we were having this conversation about, you know, creating short form content, and how sometimes we still want things to be perfect. You know, the friction for me with short form content, although technically it only takes a minute to record a 1 minute video, there's then the process where I feel like I've got to take it into something like CapCut or Captions or something else to put on the embedded captions onto the screen. And that really is kind of the friction of it. But we don't need to do all of that necessarily. You know, if it's a case of we're either getting content out or we're not, it's far better to get 100 videos out that are just literally recorded on the phone, get them out there. If the content is good and the message is good, it doesn't even need to have embedded captions. It doesn't need to have, you know, flashy graphics or anything like that. In fact, with the flashy graphics, I would say specifically, if you are doing sort of educational style content, I don't think that they add value at all. I find them to be a distraction. And if I think about the sort of people that I follow on TikTok, the people whose content that I watch and watch because, you know, I'm genuinely interested in the message that it's got in it. Actually, it's basically just talking heads. It is just somebody who's talking into their camera, you know, delivering their value. And so I think it's good to get away from this idea that we have to have a certain level. And actually the person that in question here that I'm talking about, they've got a sort of 20 or odd year history, or at least their first video was in well, 18 years, let's say 2007. And actually the first video that they posted in 2007, they were saying is their most popular. It's had like, you know, I guess at this point, hundreds of thousands of views, if not more than that. And the comment that they keep getting is that, you know, this is still the best video on this subject, even though it's from 2007. So it's a really interesting thing that, and I said, you know, what was the camera that you filmed that on? Because we were talking about, you know, what should we get? What do we need to upgrade? How do we, you know, how can you create this content? Is this going to be adequate? And so I said, you know, well, what camera was that shot on? And it was like a flip phone, you know. So really, we do have to sort of catch ourselves sometimes. And again, I was talking to this person, but I'm talking to myself as much as anything. You know, we don't necessarily need all of the gear if it's just about creating the content and getting the message out there. So yeah, it's as much as I say, a note to myself that, yeah, I'm still perfectly capable of making all of the tutorial content from this desk with this virtual background, even though my nice new studio around the corner is going to be finished in, well, maybe a week or so, something like that. But there's nothing to stop me doing more in here right now. But also, there's nothing to stop me from making short form content, just picking up my phone and doing it that way as well. So I am going to try and set a little intention here to start creating more short form content, just completely raw on the phone and just post it, even without you know, bothering with the captions. Maybe I'll try and find a bit of time to do that. But yeah, just removing that friction a little bit. So with that said, let me just say hellos. I think this is from the last stream. In fact, it is. But hi, David. Great to see you here as always. Rich Graham with my favourite little emoji, the cowboy cowboy emoji. And hey, Kerwin as well. Great to see you as well. So yeah, any questions that folks have got, drop them into the chat. I am going to do, as I mentioned there about the short form content. The first thing I'm going to do is probably after this live stream, I'm just going to go round to the studio, which is just sort of 500 meters down to the main road, along a little bit and in. So I can almost see it from here because it's in the next sort of village development or whatever you want to call it. And so as the crow flies, you know, I could almost shout to it, but I've got to go around the front to get to it. But I am going to go and make a quick video. I did a full walkthrough on the channel of all of the different spaces. So just to explain, it's basically a sort of little shop house. So there's a big open plan area downstairs, and then upstairs there are two separate rooms. So the one I'm building out first is this sort of studio space. So my desk will be sort of at this, pretty much where that desk is now, but just turned around. That back wall that you can see that is completely grey, that will be what is in the background of the main shot. Then there'll be some shelves over on the right where those doors are, so the left. And then the right-hand side at the moment is all kind of windows and some sliding doors out onto a balcony. So I'm going to actually block most of those off so that they're not letting in too much light. I want to be in full control of the light, so those are going to get sort of blocked off with some decorative features as well. But once that's done, that will pretty much replicate the studio space that I've got at the moment, as in my temporary studio space and my old space. So yeah, I'm on a little tiny desk here, not my old desk, but I've basically kept the same setup, which is my RødeCaster and monitor over here. Got my teleprompter there. I normally have my keyboard, my laptop rather, mounted up just directly below this, but I've got it on the desk. I'm actually using the keyboard at the moment. My old trusty folding keyboard, something went wrong with one of the keys the other day, so I immediately ordered a new one. I've had this for 3 years, the best folding keyboard there is, because you still get the same, the way that it folds out, you get a sort of regular shaped keyboard with no sort of visible join in it, and it's a full-size keyboard as well. It's exactly the same size as the Mac keyboard if I hold it above. So yeah, slight issue with one of the buttons, and so I just immediately ordered a new one. But in the meantime, I'm using my laptop keyboard, and then I've got my large screen over here. So this is basically just replicating what I had in my my old studio space, and this is what's basically going into that new space as well. It's just going to be exactly the same layout, same muscle memory to do all of the things that I'm used to doing without having to reorganize myself. But the downstairs studio is the one that I'm really kind of, I guess, most enthusiastic about, because that's going to be a full-on set that I'm building out, a real live virtual stage, if you like. That'll enable me to sort of move around and do some more interesting sort of presentation, rather than just, you know, bringing stuff onto the screen. I'll be able to do stuff in real life as well, I guess, as in the room itself. So let me just go over and say a couple of hellos. Hello to Val. Great to see you here. Thank you so much for stopping by. And I believe I'm getting leakage on my NTH100M. I should be able to turn down the volume on the mic side. I didn't consider that before. Something new to try, I guess, under panning. You know what? There's so many ways for audio to catch us out, shall I say? And I get so many people who book calls with me where it's invariably an audio issue rather than a camera issue. So cameras kind of, once you you can kind of see the issue more obviously, whereas there's so many ways, as I say, with audio that you don't necessarily know where the problem is coming from. But there's been so many times where people have said, I'm getting slapback. So this thing where they're hearing their audio back, or the Zoom participants maybe are getting slapped back into the Zoom meeting. And they've tried everything from an audio routing perspective, audio routing perspective. But then it turns out that, it's the headphones, specifically those ones that you're talking about, the NTH100, when they turn the volume down for themselves on the NTH100 so that it's not so loud in the cans, as it were, then it's not coming and bleeding back into the microphone. Now, because you mentioned there the NTH100M, that's the one with the boom mic, obviously, that I know you know, but for the benefit of others, NTH100M is the mic designation, so that's got the sort of little boom mic. So in that case, it's really a case of being able to just turn down. You can't necessarily turn down the volume of it's the gain of the mic. Well, technically you can, but you're still going to be picking up. That's going to affect your voice basically. So that's going to affect like the volume of your voice. The whole point of the mic is you want to still pick up, what you're saying with clarity. But if you're getting the leakage out from the actual the cans effectively, and so that's coming out from there and being picked up by the microphone. The only way to solve that really is to just actually turn down the volume that is in your headphones. So if, for example, you're using a RødeCaster and you've got something over here. So this is the volume that I'm hearing in my headphones on headphone socket 1. So if I turn this up, I hear myself louder, I hear everything louder, and I turn it down. Now, it's not affecting anything for you. You can see that the levels here are still exactly the same, but it's just affecting what I'm hearing in my headphones. Now, if I was wearing those NTH100, then that would then be affecting how loud it is coming into there. Now, obviously, you do need to you still want to be able to get the levels right for everybody. So it might be that you want to have them turned up whilst you do some sort of testing or get everything right. But then just while you're actually broadcasting, it would just be a case of turning that down slightly so that it's not so loud in your headphones itself. But that will mean that it will drop down, hopefully, to below the level where it's going to sort of bleed back into the microphone. So that's the way to fix that. And you mentioned that you're on the Duo, so that's exactly the same. You're just going to adjust the level in the headphones here and just turn it down so that it doesn't sort of come out to the point where it's getting picked up by the microphone. Assuming that's what you mean by leakage, I guess that's what you mean though. The audio is coming back out from the microphone and into the back out from the headphones and into the mic. So that would be the way to fix that. But yeah, this is. This thing of slapback, where basically something either you're saying or some more often than not, actually, it's when somebody else is saying something and then it's getting repeated back to them. That's slapback. So it's something that's happening where the audio is coming into you and then it's going back to that person again or back into the recording. And there's so many ways for that to happen. But yeah, this one of the leakage out of the NTH, out of the headphones back into that is the thing. You're saying, is there any left or right control? There is left-right control, there is panning. The trouble with that, though, is you're going to be panning it for everybody, and that's not what you would want. So in theory, you could say, right, well, I've got my headphones on, and so let me just pan the audio over to the right-hand side. There is panning on the RødeCaster, but the problem with that, though, is, and this is in the, let's see, in the outputs, and we've got processing. And then if you go to the output, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. Sorry, it is in the actual microphone control, isn't it? My mistake. If I go into a, whoops, don't want to go to there. Go into this microphone, then you've got panning on the microphone itself. So then you can pan to the left or right. But the problem with that is it's not just affecting what you're hearing, it's also affecting what is going into the recording. So yeah, it would move the audio from your mic over to the right-hand side, let's say, if the mic is on the left. But then everybody else would be hearing that, you know, over to one side of their headphones. So it's not really the ideal scenario at all, because it would sound weird. So yeah, definitely fix it by reducing the volume in your headphones so that it's not sort of bleeding out into the microphone is the way to go there. Yeah, I guess the other thing that you could do is you could look at the noise gate as well of the microphone itself. So with that, that's basically the noise gate is when you are speaking into the microphone, it lets through the audio that's coming into the microphone, whereas when you stop, it shuts the gate by a certain amount, either a little bit or all the way, so that there's no sound. So for example, when I stop speaking, my audio goes completely silent. If I turn my noise gate off, then what that does is it allows audio through all the time. So right now, there's this background noise. I'm turning my gain up so that you can hear it. But there's like the sound of an aircon, there's some birds outside, and so on. But as soon as I activate the noise gate, then that all goes away. So that's a way that you can sort of control the audio that's coming through. So if you have got some sort of bleed that's coming through from the headphones into the microphone, then what you can do is you can go into the noise gate in the advanced audio settings of the RødeCaster Duo, and then turn that on. But the thing to look for here is this one, the range. The range is basically how much that gate is shutting by when it detects that or when it doesn't detect that you're speaking, or when you're not speaking over a certain level. And so if you turn that range all the way down to minus 100 dB, that means that it's all the way shut. The default on the RødeCasters is something usually about, I don't know, 15 or 10 or something like that, which means that it does sort of partially shut the gate, partially, you know, prevent the audio from coming through, but not completely. It doesn't completely close it. So I have mine with that range set all the way down to minus 100, and it means that when I stop speaking, there's nothing getting through. The other thing to adjust then on that is the threshold. That's the point at which this dotted line here, you can see that I'm speaking. When my volume from my voice or from the room that the mic's picking up drops below that, that's when the gate is shut. So you just want to play around with that threshold, making sure that as you're talking, it's staying above there. Technically, there's another line here, which is actually when it actually shuts. The line at the top is the threshold when it opens. The line at the bottom is the volume at which it's going to shut. So that's basically so that, you know, if I just speak a little bit quietly, maybe not as loud as I was speaking at the beginning, then it still allows my audio to drop below that and not just be constantly sort of trying to open and shut the gate again. And that one's set by this here, the hysteresis. And you can see that as I change this, if I can find the dial, it's changing the position of that closing line. And what you'll notice is that basically 1 means that you wouldn't have that, because that means that once it's open, it's never going to shut again. But then it's kind of like from 0 to 100%. So it's basically saying how much lower than the starting point, than the opening threshold, is it going to shut off. So if it's set to 0, it means that the threshold that it's going to open is the same as when it shuts. If you change that to 0.5, it's basically half as much. So that's actually where I have it. So it means that if my audio drops down below that line, it's not going to sort of trigger the gate to shut until it goes below that bottom line. But that would be another way to prevent it from giving that slap back, you know, and presumably it's only kind of like a faint slap back that you're getting from that, because it's just sort of coming out of the headphones and then the microphone's picking it up faintly. But that would be another way that when you're not speaking, then it's not picking up anything from that mic anyway. But as I say, the best thing though is going to be, I would say, to reduce the volume in the headphones first and foremost, but then also look to use that noise gate as well to help reduce that slightly as well. Yeah, the RødeCaster and all audio actually, it can be tricky to identify these problems, but it's good that you found it because, as I say, many people just notice that they've got this slight repetition of things going on, and it's just noticing that if it's lower volume than the original, then that's likely due to some sort of audio leakage, as in it's bleeding out from a speaker and into the microphone. Whereas if you're hearing it at the same volume, so somebody says something and it goes straight back to them, slightly delayed at the same level, then that's usually to do with an audio routing as opposed to coming through speakers or whatever. And if you can hear there's a different quality to it as well, then that's often the case. So I hope that helps. You're not alone in that issue, especially with, I mean, that's why I kind of like these in-ear monitors as well, because they're not so, then by definition, they don't need to be so loud. They're right into your sort of ear canal. So there's not much sort of bleeding out of those potentially into the microphone. I also just like that they're not so intrusive, on camera. You may not be on camera for it, I'm not sure, but yeah, just not quite so intrusive as having headphones over the ears. Although I get that it's not necessarily comfortable to wear these all of the time. I talked the other week about this being a temporary studio, but yeah, I still couldn't be without my RødeCaster and Stream Deck. So hence I did basically just build the same setup as I had previously with my Stream Decks. I've had to kind of move them out of the way to fit my laptop in. But yeah, the RødeCaster is kind of an essential piece for me with the audio routing that we do with like for Zoom and so on. So technically that doesn't need to be up. But I have my Ecamm on one channel, so Ecamm and system audio. Zoom is on the other. I've got the Zoom backstage going, so I've just sort of muted it so that if anything's said in there, it doesn't come through. But this is where I can control the volume of that independently for what I'm hearing in my ears as well. And then the main mic here. I'm tempted in my new studio though to actually switch back to the Duo for my desk setup, and then use the Pro for the RødeCaster Pro 2 for the downstairs studio. I might do that the other way around. I have to just think about where I need more channels. The RødeCaster Duo though, I do keep mentioning this. I always say that they kind of misnamed it. Really, it should have been called like the RødeCaster Pro Mini or something like that, because it's every bit as much Pro really as the RødeCaster Pro 2. It's just that it's got a couple two fewer microphone inputs, although it's got the headset input on the front, so it's got one extra there. But yeah, it's every bit as powerful really as the RødeCaster Pro 2, just in a nicer, smaller form factor. So if you're not needing to plug in all those microphones, then it's great. And I only switched back to the RødeCaster Pro 2 when I was doing something where I needed kind of like 3 mics for two that were plugged in all the time. Then I had another one which was a wireless mic, and so it just made sense to have those extra channels and extra faders available. But yeah, I love the Duo completely. If you've got any other questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. Having a conversation about acoustic panels as well with somebody just the other day, because I mentioned in the video that I did, the video walkthrough, saying that I was going to hang up these acoustic panels, and they said, oh, is it these kind of things? And you see a lot of things on Amazon which are, let me just see if I can pull up some pictures of these. If you do a search for acoustic panels, what you're going to find is a lot of things that sort of stick to the wall directly, like foam pads basically. And let me just see if I can find some. I can't talk and type at the same time. Oh, and now I've changed my keyboard language into Thai. That doesn't help either with my search. Yeah, so if you search for acoustic panels on Amazon, you're going to find lots of things like this, these foam things that basically just kind of stick to the wall, and they're just spongy foam. Yeah, sometimes they've got like the adhesive back already built in, so you just sort of peel the back off and then stick them on. Other times you need to use something else, and they certainly do a reasonable job at reducing the the reverberation in the room. So it's not just like echo, really. It's that thing that sounds like a, that you're in an empty room, basically. So you're not hearing echo as such. It's more like the reverberation in the room. So that's certainly going to help if you just sort of apply that directly to the wall. Actually, the acoustic panels that I've got in my studio, or that I'm putting in, are the ones from my old studio. They're actually more like this sort of thing. I actually built them myself. I made wooden frames and then got the acoustic material for inside and put that in. But they're actually considerably thicker. So they're probably actually about the same size as this. Let's look. So this is, about the same size. So this is like 2 foot by 4 foot. And it's got a frame, and then there is this acoustic foam in the middle, and then there is some sort of material over on the outside. And you actually either suspend them from the ceiling. So in my old studio, I had one directly above me, but then also the ones that are on the wall, they're kind of stood off from the wall slightly. So in fact, these are exactly the same size as it happens as the ones that I made, 2 inches deep. But then they're also stood off the wall by a couple of inches. And actually, that extra distance off the wall improves the effectiveness of them as well. You would think having them, right up against the wall would work better, but in fact, having that slight gap is what is recommended. So something like these here are very similar to the ones that I made myself. So. I'll just drop the link in case anybody's interested in those. So let's just drop these in and drop this into here. So yeah, that's what I'm using. Obviously, it means that you've got to have the space to put them in, and it's not as easy to mount. They need to have a sort of mounting hook or whatever to put them on there. But I obviously, in my old studio, as you saw, made a sort of feature of them. So there was 2 of them directly behind me, one on either side, and I also put lights around them, just some low-cost sort of strip light around the outside. So that gave them that sort of backlighting effect. So they looked like they were stood off from the wall, or gave that wall wash behind them. And then I also had some other spotlights that were pointing onto the panel itself, so that sort of came through as well. So those are what I'm using in my studio. I am going to use some of that foam stuff though as well. So for example, like there's a couple of doors in that studio. So here you can see there's two doors there. I'm actually going to cover those in those self-adhesive foam panels just to help with the audio there as well. Let's just come back here though. Let me see. So here, where are we? Come back to this question. Would appreciate your thought on camera decision comparing the OBSBot Tiny 2 versus the Sony ZV-E10. Will likely also get the Elgato prompter. Seems like the main difference is in background blur, likely used for talking head screen sharing videos when I start my YouTube channel. I'm not opposed to spending the money if it makes sense for the long term, but not sure if these days people are moving away from that setup. The fact is, I mean, I've got the Tiny 2, the OBSBot Tail Air, the OBSBot Tail. I've got all of the OBSBots, and what I'll say is they are amazing cameras, and it's for the price. You know, the Sony ZV-E10, even the so I use the Sony ZV-E10 1 is my primary camera, as in the first version of it, with a Sony Sigma 30mm lens. And I will say that the image quality that you get out of that is arguably, you know, better than you're going to get from these others. But you've just highlighted it with that price as well. Would you rather? It's also this idea of there are these diminishing returns that we have when it comes to, you know, investing in things. I've talked before about, you know, when I started, I had the Shure MV7 microphone, and I bought that because it had dual XLR and also USB, and I used that microphone into my my computer, and then at some point I got the RødeCaster and I plugged it into there. I'm now using the Rode Pod mic. I think that the Rode Pod mic and the MV7 are pretty much equally matched in my ears, my untrained ears. I'm just happened to be you know, using this one. The other one I was using as a separate mic in a separate setup or whatever. But anyway, the fact is, though, there is still this voice in my head every so often that creeps in, the little tech gremlin that sits on my shoulder telling me things that I need to get to improve my setup. And it talks about, obviously the SM7B is this kind of like, the gold standard of podcast mics. It's not the best mic by any stretch. You can go way above that in terms of audio quality and price and everything. But it's just one of these things that is, all of the top podcasters use the Shure SM7B, or there's a couple of others. But anyway, so there's this little voice that tells me that maybe I should upgrade. But the fact is it really making a difference to my content at all? And I would say that, to your question, the Tiny 2 gives a great image quality. I don't have mine plugged in now, but I usually have that as my sort of side shot. It's really lightweight. It's a great image quality, and it's $300. So if you're comparing $300 or the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II at $1,100, you may want to think about with the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II to then potentially be getting, a prime lens like the Sigma 16, Sigma 30 or whatever, or a Sony lens. That is going to be another, couple of $100 on top of that as well. So for the cost of like an entire setup with a Tiny 2, a decent microphone, a Stream Deck, a teleprompter, and a couple of lights, you're probably only just getting up to the point of matching the cost of the Sony ZV-E10 with a great, a different prime lens. So I think that really you kind of answered it there. You don't necessarily need to spend all of that extra money when really these streaming cameras, I'll call them, these days are getting better and better. And certainly when I bought my Sony ZV-E10 and the lens that I've got on it, I didn't feel that the streaming cameras were quite there in terms of the Tiny 2 and the Tail Air weren't available at that point. But now we're really getting to this point where, they do a job and do it really well. And also, I'll say about, if you look at the whole OBSBot range as well, you've got the Tiny 2, there is the Meet 2, which is even lower cost than that as well. And then you've got the Tail Air, the Tail 2, and they are at different price points. I think the Meet is around about $100 or maybe $150. Then you've got the Tiny 2, the Tail Air, and the Tail 2, and that goes up to maybe like $1,100, I think, for the Tail 2. But those are all adding lots of different functionality, like the AI tracking, the optical zoom that you have on the Tail 2. So they're adding in all these different features and also different ways to connect, like HDMI, USB, NDI, and all those kind of things. And that really is what OBSBot, I think, are doing really well, is they are just providing like all these options at various different price ranges across the market, but they've basically got all of these different features in. And so that's what you're paying extra for. The quality is great on all of them. So yeah, the Tiny 2 is a great camera choice. So don't necessarily feel like you're missing out by not getting the 1100 one. And I also bring back to this conversation that I talked about earlier, which is where this member of the Academy, he's got a video from 2007 that's still his most popular video. Every day is getting more views than anything else. And that was filmed on a flip phone. So it still also does come back to, if you've got good content, then actually the camera is not as important as we like to think as, or I should speak for myself, as a tech geek who's constantly thinking, well, how can I just make it look better? When actually, if we focus on our content a bit more, maybe that would be a better way to direct things. So yeah, objectively, you can say the Sony ZV-E10 with a prime lens is going to give you a slightly better image quality than the Tiny 2, but there is a price to pay for that. And is it actually going to give you, relatively that much more value into your content? So I hope that helps a little bit. I have my mug here to warn me of this all the time. The gear acquisition syndrome. It's so easy to, chase those marginal gains. And it's the same with me with a microphone. Every time I think about upgrading my microphone, I think, have people really not been able to hear me clearly up until now? And is that an essential piece of gear? I'm far more likely to upgrade things like the computer, or things that are going to add some additional value to it rather than the mic or the camera. So I hope that helps. It is always a challenge when there's all these new things, and it's funny as well. Like the the other conversation that I was having with somebody was about the Rode wireless mics. And so they've got a Rode wireless mic from, I think 5 years ago or something like that. And now they've got obviously the Rode wireless mic 2 that came out, the Rode Wireless Pro. They've got the new clip-on ones as well that just, well, they were clip-on, I suppose, but the new mini ones, I should say, specifically for mobile. So there's new mics coming out all the time. But we mustn't lose sight of, well, is that product from 5 years ago still perfectly serviceable? I mean, it was perfectly okay for people to create content and let's even say, make millions from from content that they were using those pieces of equipment in. So do we need to really just have like the absolute latest and greatest all the time? Even with the Sony there, the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II versus the Mark I, there could be something to say for, well, maybe the Mark I's still good. I mean, mine has been switched on for, I guess, just over 3 years now, pretty much non-stop, because I never turn my camera off. It's just in my teleprompter. I only turned off to move house, but essentially it's just stayed here. I've barely touched the settings on it at all, and it's just been doing its thing all the time. So that might be another thing. It's the same with like hubs and docks. There are Thunderbolt 5 now. Well, if you've got something like the CalDigit TS3 Thunderbolt 3 dock, do you need to upgrade to the Thunderbolt 4? Well, maybe yes, if you're doing lots of high-speed data transfer to some sort of external drive or something like that. But if all you're doing is using it as a dock to connect multiple different things and have enough power to power all of those things, then the TS3 could still be good for a long time to come. Just because there's a new standard out, a new faster speed, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to impact what you do. So. Yeah, there again is me just talking to myself about these upgrades sometimes and deciding what is really necessary. Any other questions, feel free to drop them in. I've been looking at lighting options though. Speaking of upgrades, obviously I've got all the same gear. I'm just going to install this into the new studio. So the lighting that I'm using here, my key light, this is a 3 foot 90 centimeter softbox here on a Nanlite Forza 60. So the light is somewhere just behind there. You can't see it, the dome is so large on that. And then this one is a 2 foot softbox with the same Nanlite Forza 60 behind it. So I'm still going to use those as my key light and fill light in the new sort of desk studio space. But obviously I've got this other space that I've got to sort of build out as well. And this one's a bit more tricky because I'm not going to be stationary as I am in this kind of setup. The whole idea is that I'm able to move around, and then I'll be using actually the Obsbot Tail 2 will be sort of panning, and I'll be able to sort of move over to a board, bring up content over onto another screen, have Zoom participants that can be, active speaker projected onto that screen. So when I'm having a conversation with somebody in a live situation, I can kind of walk over to the screen and they can be up there on the screen without me necessarily sort of switching to a dedicated scene in Ecamm, and a few other ideas that I've got. But that means that I've got to be a bit more conscious about the lighting, because rather than just, a key light and a fill light, it's a bit of a different setup because the light needs to be able to be good wherever I happen to be standing in the space. So I've been looking at different options for lighting. I'm considering trying something a bit different in there as well, which is these lights that I've got. Basically, they just get switched on and off with a master switch, and the 2 key lights come on. All of the background lighting, well, this is virtual, but in my regular studio space, my old one and in the new one, those ones will be they're sort of Nanlite, and I just have an app that I just turn them all on with. But actually, more often than not, those sort of low-powered lights, I tend to just leave those on in any case, so that everything's just ready to go whenever I come in. However, in the downstairs sort of big studio space, the main stage as I'm calling it, I'm looking at DMX lighting control. And it's never something that I've worked with before, but this is a way that professional lighting rigs work, where you have what looks like an XLR plug. So there's either the 3-pin or 5-pin Similar looking plugs though, and then all the lighting is wired into a central control board. So if you think about like a lighting desk in a theater, or in a for a music gig or whatever, they've got a big lighting board that they can control all this, but you can also control it virtually in software as well. So I'm looking at having all of the lights being DMX equipped fittings, so they can all go into a lighting controller, and then I'll be able to control all of that again with Stream Deck from within the computer. So yeah, looking at just doing all the research, and I'll share my my journey with that as I go along. But yeah, lots more to learn there. But I love having a new project to get my my teeth into. So there we go. Well, I'll share how that goes along the way. Hey Alan, great to see you here. Thank you for stopping by. Have I watched BFDI before? The answer is no. I'm just wondering what that acronym means. So I would love to know how that actually looks. What that actually, I'm just looking at something now. I would love to know what BFDI stands for, because I'm not sure. So I could say no, but I also don't know what it looks like, what it is. Hey, Don, great to see you here. We were just chatting the other day. How are you running Zoom and Ecamm to separate channels on the RødeCaster? And is that a boom mic overhead in the middle of your softboxes? So with RødeCaster, what I'm doing is I've got, let's see, on the RødeCaster, I've got one channel set up as, where are we here? So this one is my, it's RødeCaster Pro 2 main stereo, and this one is the RødeCaster Pro 2 chat, and this one is RødeCaster Pro 2 secondary. So there's two USB cables. USB 1 cable is carrying these two channels, and the second USB cable is carrying this one. So you can have 3 USB channels into your computer. Actually, they've got virtual channels now as well, but we'll skip that for the moment. So basically, I've got those two things set up there this is the fader for my main stereo channel, and this is the fader for my secondary. So then in Ecamm, what I've done is I've got, if we go into my Ecamm settings here, I will just go into this and do a screen share. So here is my Ecamm setup here. You can see that down in the sound levels, I've got the RødeCaster Pro 2 main multi-track, or main stereo, but it's, in any case, this is the first channel here. So that's what I've got on my sound levels. If I then go into my settings here and we go into audio, then I've got the same as my setup on speaker. So RødeCaster Pro 2 main is my audio in and audio out from Ecamm. Now, if I go into my Ecamm for Zoom settings, so click here, go to Zoom meeting settings. Now what you'll see is in the Zoom settings for Ecamm for Zoom, in my audio, I've got my audio set to RødeCaster Pro 2 chat and RødeCaster Pro 2 chat here as well. That means that my audio into Zoom is going in through the chat, and the audio back out from Zoom is coming out from the chat. So that's how I've got that sort of 2 separate things set up. What you also need to do is in Ecamm Live Preferences, just make sure you've got manual audio mode selected. That means that you're in control of the audio routing, and you're going to be doing that through the RødeCaster. You can also disable the Zoom audio settings in here as well, because that means that you are again in control of that if you are doing this all via the RødeCaster on separate channels. So then now what I've done is on the RødeCaster itself, because I obviously at the moment, if somebody were to speak in the Zoom backstage, I would be able to hear that, but I don't want it to come into the live stream. So what I've done there then is on the RødeCaster, you've got these buttons at the bottom of the channels, and the green one here with the little ear symbol, that's the listen button. And what that means is that you as the host, as in you are on the headphone 1 channel, so your headphones are plugged into headphone 1, you can choose to listen to any of these channels individually. Now, if you have these all off to begin with, which is the standard, and then you just press one of them, it means that in your headphones, all you are going to hear is that channel on its own and nothing else. But what I do is I basically listen to all of them. So it means that I can hear everything. Now, you might say, well, what's the point of that when you could just leave it off and then you'd be able to listen to them all anyway? Well, what that means is when you've got one of these channels set to listen, if you also have the channel muted, which means that it's not going out into the mix, you can still hear it though as the host because it's still coming through. You're still hearing it on this this listen thing here. So what that means is that if somebody in the Zoom backstage was to be talking now, you're not going to hear it in the broadcast because it's muted, so it's not going out into the mix. But I can hear it because it is still coming through to me. I'm still listening to it. And that means that's why I turn this volume down, because it means that if somebody does talk in the Zoom backstage, I can still hear them, but it's just like a lower volume, so it's not as distracting. But I still can hear them because usually it only happens when somebody's telling me that I'm doing something wrong. So it's helpful. But that's how I just exclude it. Now, if I was to bring up somebody from the Zoom backstage into the broadcast, so let's say I've got a scene in Ecamm where I want them on screen, then I can just selectively like unmute them at some point to allow the Zoom audio to come through. You can also do things as well here. If I was to press the mute button on my own channel here, it would actually, these ones would change to. And what I've now done is I've created a back channel. So when I mute my own and I've got listen on, any other channels that have got the mute and the listen, it means that I'm going to be able to speak to them and not the stream. So if I wanted to say something that went into the Zoom backstage but not into the stream, I would just press this button. That would activate the backstage, the back channel, and then I could speak to those people. You can also set this up as a shortcut as well. So I've got this button on the smart pads, which is back channel, and when I press this button, it automatically activates the back channel as well. So I used this when I did the Digital Stage Summit, which was that 3-day event I did earlier on this year. And so when I wanted to be able to speak to the speakers whilst the commentators were on screen, then I just initiated this backstage thing here, the back channel, I should say. And that meant that I was able to just talk to them without that audio coming through into the broadcast. So that's how I'm running Ecamm and Zoom, two separate channels. And as to that question, is that a boom mic? No, it's actually a top-down camera. So that is the OBSBot Tail Air. That's just above my desk, and that's an AverMedia live streamer boom arm, which is a great mic arm actually. If you're finding that you've got you need a longer reach on your mic boom and you're using something like the Elgato low profile, you can see that that's just sort of attached to the edge of the thing here. But if this isn't quite long enough, this one over here, it kind of is a dual function really, because at the moment it looks like it's a classic sort of over the top boom arm. But in actual fact, if you, it can rotate in all directions. So you can have it as either like over the top or down as more like a low profile arm. So it works in both ways there. Let me just come back to this a minute. Let me just pin this to that screen. There we go. Where am I now? Just lost my place a little bit. So it stands for Battle for Dream Island. It's a web series on YouTube about objects battling for. I have not seen it. I'm not aware of it, but I will check it out if it's worth looking at. I'm not sure. I actually don't tend to watch much at all, really. I don't watch TV, so any TV series I don't really watch. And I've not been watching a great deal of just general content recently at all, to be honest. I've been too busy doing stuff and out and about. So yeah, not much consumption going on, but I will check that out. Looking at lighting too, but wanted to keep it minimal and small. There's plenty of great lighting options out here as well. I mean, I use Nanlite. Don, who was asking that previous question, he was asking, saying he's got Amaran lights, and but what were the ones that I recommend? Honestly, if you're using Aperture, Amaran, or Nanlite, they're all kind of the same level. There are some real lower cost budget lights. I would just be wary of ones that aren't necessarily video lights. I've bought this one. I bought this to try it, and it is a let's see. Let me try and see if I can take it off. It's so I've got these Nanlite Pavo tubes, which are sort of tube lights, the ones that used to be in the oh, I've just triggered something. Flashing light. Let me turn that off. So yeah, these sort of tube lights like this, the ones that I used in my old studio, and are just off to the side here, Nanlite Pavo tubes, they're kind of like a foot long and are this kind of thing. Well, I saw this, it was on like a special offer in the equivalent of Amazon. It's Lazada is the Amazon of Southeast Asia, basically. It's an e-commerce platform. But I saw these on special offer and they were just like so low cost, but like discounted, I should say, that I thought, well, I might as well just give it a try. And actually it's been okay. But what I've noticed recently is that it's started to like flicker a little bit. And that's where like paying for something that's a reasonably good brand is going to make the difference, because there's nothing worse than having a light that's supposed to be doing something and then it's just introducing a small flicker. And it's not the flicker that you get if you've got uncalibrated lights that are just regular, like household LEDs. Sometimes those, you don't see the flicker, but it just comes through into the video. These ones are actually, you know, you look at it and you can see it's kind of flickering slightly. So that's a bit annoying. So yeah, just be conscious of the lights that you're getting. But yeah, you don't need to have a full-on control thing going on. It is good though to have like one brand that you're sort of sticking with if they've got an app that you can control them all with. So for example, my two Nanlite key lights and then those Nanlite Pavo tubes that I use for like the backlighting, and then I've got some little other Nanlite branded small little lights that I use in the studio for illuminating certain other things. So if you saw my old studio, there was lots of little lighting features around. Those were all Nanlite specifically because then when I'm using the Nanlite app, I can set up scenes so that I press one button and it changes everything. So it's kind of good to like be consistent and stick with a particular brand of light and stick to it. So yeah, Don, that's why I mentioned in the email. If you've got Amaran lights already, then just because I happen to be using Nanlite here, no need to think that, oh, that's the one to use. It just happens to be what I went with. In fact, for the lights in the downstairs studio in the new build, I will be going with something different than Nanlite. I want to try out some other brand as well. So, and I'm looking at things where they've got a range of light with this DMX light control. Although to be fair, that's the whole point about DMX lighting is it's just the connector and it's a standard, so you don't necessarily need to stick to one particular brand in that case. However, for just a regular setup, sticking to one where you can control them all is the way to go. I will say about panel lights, if you're short on space, obviously these lights that I've got here, I mean, they're pretty huge. It's 90 centimeters across at the front, so 3 foot. And then they go back about 3 foot or maybe 2.5 foot, something like that for that big dome. So it takes up a lot of space. This is not like a minimal setup in this room, and they're stretching back, quite a way. So they're quite big pieces of equipment to have. If you are doing something that is just like you want it really small and lightweight, and you want to, you're using some of these LED panels, for example. There are companies like Elgato who make them, and so there's a temptation because, well, if you've got the Elgato prompter, you've got the Stream Deck and the Elgato mic and the boom arm, then might as well get the lights to go with it, because then they're all controlled by Stream Deck. I will say that I feel like Elgato panel lights are a little bit overpriced for what they are. If you compare them to like companies like Ulanzi make some great panel lights as well that are about the same size but are about half the price. Same with Newer, NWER. They make some great panel lights as well, and again they're about half the price of the Elgato ones. So and the Ulanzi one, I bought one to just try it out, and it was great. It comes with a little remote anyway, so you can still just easily switch them on and off. So if you are short of space, using those panel lights is a good option. It's never going to give you as good a lighting though as the larger diameter ones, and basically that's just because it's giving you a softer light. It's a bit like if I was to take just my phone. Obviously this is not, I'm not recommending this as a as a light to use. And it won't use on when I'm in continuity camera mode. Let's just try this. But the point is, I can try and switch it on. The point is you get a harsh light from a point source. So if I just turn the light on my camera and have that, you know, at any distance away from me, then you're getting like a really harsh light because of the fact that it's coming from a small point. The whole reason why we have these larger softboxes is because it just gives you a softer light, a better lighting on you that more naturally represents, you know, sort of natural daylight or whatever. And to you, Don, that's why I mentioned in the email about you know, potentially looking at, if you've got a setup like this, you're sitting at a desk and you've got the space available, then going for the bigger softbox is going to give you a sort of softer light on you completely. So this is not an ideal lighting setup. This is part of my. I mentioned at the very beginning how I was feeling like. I didn't want to be making too much content in this virtual space here, this temporary space, because it wasn't, you know, what it's going to be like in the main studio. Part of the thing about here is actually just controlling the lighting. In my old studio, it was basically when I was recording, there was no external light getting in and I was in full control over it. Whereas here, what I've got is the reason why, if I try and start up my camera again, let's see if this will let me do it. Let's start my continuity camera. Will it let me do it or not? There we go. Yes. So the issue that I've got, the reason why I'm using the green screen is because there is a big window right behind me. There's also a window over that side, and then there's also a window over this side. So I'm not in control of the lighting at all. So it's not the best demonstration of lighting control. But yeah, that's why I recommended those larger things, the larger soft boxes. Let's see where we're up to. Yes, panel light. Thank you for the suggestions. Yeah, so check out Ulanzi and Newer. They make reasonable sort of panel lights. And as I say, yeah, you can basically get two of those for the price of one of the Elgato. You can go really high end. I mean, I was actually looking at some, where's it gone now? I was actually looking at some Aperture panel lights earlier that were, they were huge. Because one of the issues that I've got in this studio that I'm looking at, or that I'm building, I should say, is that, if I have lots of these domes, they're really going to eat into the room space. So I was looking at some panel lights, but just getting some really huge panel lights, so you still get that large surface area. The other way, though, to do it is you just have some sort of diffusion, because that's all that these soft boxes are. There's basically just a piece of kind of cloth at the front that's letting the light through. The actual light itself is still a really small point source that's at the back of that dome, and that just is sort of illuminating that diffusion panel there. So that's the other thing is, you know, you can have a smaller source, but just have some sort of diffusion that is in front of it, some sort of sheet, some sort of thing that's going to help diffuse that light a little bit. Let's see if I can find the ones that I was looking at on here, because it was literally just earlier on today. Was it this one? That was something else. Maybe it wasn't this. No, never mind. I can't find it in my my browser. It should be somewhere around here. I'll try one more. Or maybe it was yesterday I was looking at. These were some lighting bars. But anyway, yeah. Oh, you've also got the Ecamm Live course. It's great that you've convinced me to get Ecamm. We'll use. Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, it's all good. Ecamm has been just such a game changer for me. It's the program that I'm using to create all of my videos in one take with no edits. It's what I use to switch between scenes. And the course that that you're talking about there, for the benefit of others, is the Ecamm Live Masterclass. So I did make a completely free course for all about Ecamm. If I can just bring it up, let's try this. There we go. And yeah, originally it was the first course I created for Take One Tech, really, I guess, or under the name Take One Tech. But then what I did was, after creating lots of other courses, creating the Academy, I decided to make the Ecamm Live Masterclass completely free. So you can get that at ecammlivemasterclass.com, which will redirect to my site. And yeah, you get instant access to it. It's not just a, you know, it's not a just a little sample of the course. It is actually the full course. There's like 40 odd lessons, something like that. But it starts actually with a quick start guide. That's something I changed from the first course, because sometimes people get a bit overwhelmed. They go into course and think, holy crap, I've got 150 lessons to watch. Well, we start with a quick start guide, so you can be up and running with Ecamm in absolutely in no time at all. So yeah, if you want to learn how to get the most out of Ecamm, then that's how to do it. And what you can also do is you can sign up to Ecamm, which is very kind of you to say, using my affiliate link, which is dropped into the chat as well. And if you sign up with my link, then just use the promo code Take1Tech when you start your trial, or sorry, when you pay for your first payment, and you'll get 15% off. So if you're on an annual subscription, that's 15% off your first year. If you're on a monthly subscription, it is 15% off your first month. But yeah, it's been a real game changer for me. Ecamm, I can say that, you know, I literally would not be doing the business that I am doing now with Take1Tech and the Digital Stage Academy and all the other courses without Ecamm. I originally started this channel, Take1Tech, to practice the process of making videos in one take with no edits using Ecamm Live. And yeah, it's then because I was just so taken by the software that the majority of the first videos that I made on the channel were all about Ecamm and Stream Deck, because I was just, you know, totally geeking out over it. And it wasn't a case of I'd got years of experience of working with these tools and then started making videos. It was, I would, you know, learn something one day and then the next day I'd make a video about it, like just an enthusiastic little puppy about how cool it was. But yeah, it's really enabled everything that I've done since, because Ecamm is live production software, which means it's easy to, you know, go back and forth switching scenes. But once you actually get into a rhythm with it, to be able to just, you know, flick back and forth between your screen share, your main camera, a second camera, maybe bring a guest up onto the screen if you've got a guest with you or whatever. And to be able to do that just at the touch of a button with the Stream Deck means that actually all of the production and all of the, you know, the tech side of things, it does just get out of the way eventually. You get this muscle memory. And so then it just becomes a natural flow of a conversation or delivering information or delivering content. And so if you stick with it and persevere and keep practicing at using Ecamm, it can transform not just your recorded videos, because you can make them in one take with no edits, but also all of your Zoom calls, your workshops, your webinars, and everything like that. And people will be wondering how on earth you're doing it. And it's so easy in the Ecamm community to see everybody doing these things, you know, day in, day out, and it's just becomes normal. And then occasionally you just rock up to a Zoom meeting and completely blow people away because they're not Ecamm folk, and they just think like, how on earth are you doing all of this in Zoom? Because everything that I'm doing right now on this live stream could equally just be into a Zoom call. I could just be flicking back and forth, showing you some content. None of this Zoom screen share where you're trying to find the Zoom screen share button and then decide what you're going to share and then share the wrong thing and have to exit it and do it again. And all the little dance that you see people do with Zoom screen sharing, it's all just built in. And now with Ecamm for Zoom as well, it's so easy to just do an interview show where yeah, you get to just give somebody a Zoom link, they join with Zoom, and then you can pull their video feed into your Ecamm production. And then just like that, you've got, you know, an interview show going as well, all powered with Zoom and the production through Ecamm. So yeah, little Ecamm promo there, but I'm glad you like the course. And as I say, it's completely free. Why is it free? Well, I have got a load of other courses on Stream Deck, RødeCaster. I've got the Digital Stage Academy. I've got other paid products. So the Ecamm course basically is a foundation of everything that I do, really. So it just seemed that it made perfect sense to make that completely free, and then that kind of feeds into some of these other things. So yeah. That's the reason why it's free. There's no catch to it, is what I'm saying, I guess. Are you going with green screen or virtual set for your stage? If I choose virtual screen or green screen, can I include my vibe board and fake audience B-roll in the scene without making it look unreal? So what we're talking about here is for the benefit of others. In the new studio space, I've got this one room that's going to be just a regular desk setup with an actual background. And then in the downstairs, I've got this place that I can sort of move around in. Now, I'm going with a real physical set. I'm actually going to build out the set. It's going to have, if you imagine sort of the camera, let's say the camera's where the mic is, but we're just looking in plan view now. There's going to be a straight back to it. And then, whoops, there's going to be a straight back to it. And then there's going to be two sides sort of sloping in. So wherever the camera's pointing, there's a portion of the set in view. So it's kind of like a shorter backside, longer where the camera is, and then two sloping sides coming in. And what I'm going to have there then is there's going to be a TV over on one side, which is going to be like in horizontal format, and then there is going to be a vertical TV over on the other wall, and there's also going to be like I can move in a chair and a sort of sit down space. So I'm going to do like a sort of sitting podcast in there, but not like at a desk, just actually sitting in a chair if you like. But there'll be a vertical screen that I can use for either just show graphics or it might be used for, some content as well. But I'm going to have it where when I want to introduce maybe a part of a presentation, that can be running on the wall over this side. So as I walk over to it, the camera will pan over and then I'll be able to introduce the content that is on that screen. It'll also be in Ecamm. You can pull out the members of a Zoom call and you can have like the active speaker. You can project that onto an external monitor. So I can have it where if I'm doing a Q&A, for example, in a workshop or a presentation or whatever on the virtual stage, and somebody wants to ask a question in Zoom, they can raise their hand, come off mute, and then when they speak, I can have it so they're automatically on that TV over onto the side. So you can imagine I'm standing at the front, delivering whatever content, and then I just move over to the side and walk over to where that TV is. And the person who's asking the question is magically just on that TV. So we can have a sort of back and forth conversation on the TV, and they're by definition then captured in the screen without necessarily having to have a scene set up like this, which is me on one side and the person on the other. See you later, Rich. Rich in the backstage just saying goodbye. See you later, Rich. So that's how I'm doing it. However, you could still totally, with a vibe board, have a green screen behind that, and actually having something physical in front of the green screen would be a really good way to increase the realism of the virtual background. So you would just, as long as you've not got any green on the content on the vibe board, which is a vibe board, by the way, is a big screen, but you can either have it acts as a screen. You could do the things that I'm just talking about, but also it's kind of like a virtual, a physical whiteboard that you can draw on and diagram and put things up there as well. So, but yeah, if you imagine having a green screen behind that, and then the vibe board is something physical in front, and then creating a virtual background in Ecamm that's kind of dropped into where the green is, you can also make it even more realistic by, let's say, you were trying to simulate, some sort of TV studio where they've got, sometimes you have a TV studio and then you've got something in the background going on with, something moving. Sometimes you see TV studios where they've got, what looks like, looking out of a window to a cityscape or something like that. You could do that part with a green screen, but then just have something like at the bottom, which looks like part of the set. And it's just going to blur that line between what's the virtual and what is the real. So yeah, you can absolutely do that. So let's just go back to this. So let's see. And fake audience B-roll in the scene without making it look unreal. So with the fake audience B-roll, if you mean that you want to just, that is really clever. That you mean, so it's like got a shot of you and then like cut away to the audience, like looking into the thing. Yeah, I mean, you could totally do that. And actually Ecamm, it's really easy to do B-roll in Ecamm. And I've done it a few times with things. So let's see if this is probably not going to work because I don't know if I've got the thing set up. Let's try. No, this one isn't. Let's see. This is, no, I've not got any setup with B-roll. That's why. Let me just come back to this. So basically I've got a scene set up in Ecamm, which should have like a video play. So you just set basically the video to play in the background. Oh, sure, I did have some of this. Oh, this one, yeah. So like, obviously you wouldn't have me in the shot if you were wanting to make it look like it was an audience, but just imagine that this video was a shot of an audience. You could literally have you like this, and then you just press a button on Stream Deck. It cuts away to what would be something like this, the audience shot, if you like. And then you can also have it so that once that scene ends, it just automatically flicks back to you again. So that's a way that you can incorporate B-roll into Ecamm. And all you do for that, though, is just have where you go to that scene. So this was, where was it? Down here. This overview scene here. All that is a scene, and I've just got the source of the scene is basically a video file, and then you just drop the video file in of whatever. So if you wanted to make it look like, yes, you were actually on a stage and there was a live audience and you wanted to put that into there, then you certainly could do that as well. Nice, nice touch, that one. But yeah, you definitely could do that. And yeah, make it with it looking real or unreal. As I say, those physical elements are really going to help fool the eye. What I normally do, I haven't done it here. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I've got this light set to blue. If you notice in the background of my shot here, we've got a blue light. And so the reason why this is blue, when I turn it on, if I can turn it on, it's got no power, maybe that's it, maybe the battery's dead. But basically, the reason to have a blue light off to the side is it means that the blue sort of emulates the light that's going on in the background. And so to do this virtual green screen background properly, I would have a blue light on this side and a purple one on that side, so that the light that's being cast on the microphone and on me is matching the background. And so yeah, including things like that in your lighting setup. If you've got colored lighting in the background of the virtual background, kind of matching that in the foreground is going to be a nice little trick to do. And then, as I say, just any physical objects like the vibe board or anything else like that, so to make it look real. Even things like here, obviously these are completely virtual plants and lights, but you could do something where you make a real set, but then you just use like a couple of elements that are real in the background. So yeah, Rich just saying goodbye, and Val saying bye to Rich as well. So yeah, that's it's an interesting project that you've got done, and as I say, I've got the same one going on as well. I mean, you could go with, given the space that you've got, you could go with, if you want to make it look a more expansive space, that would be another reason to potentially consider using green screen, is that you could have like you kind of make a real set and then sort of expand it out onto either side. One of the things I have seen people doing actually is, let's say, taking a snapshot of your existing background and then even just use AI to sort of expand it out on either side. So then you can have a zoomed out shot, which makes it look much bigger. But yeah. So yeah, cool. Let me just come to this a minute. So where are we? So the green screen should cover the whole wall and pull the vibe board in front. Yeah, that would be a great way to do it, because then you could put whatever you want on the green, and then the vibe board is like a physical object that's in front that you're then interacting with, and it would sort of blur that line. Obviously, this that I've got on here, everything is just fake, so there's nothing I can go and touch back there. It's just a green screen. But if I had like a physical object in front of this, like maybe it's a light, maybe it's something else, or maybe it's, in your case, the vibe board, then yeah, it would kind of just fool the eye a little bit more into the fact that that wasn't a real background. It also helps to have this haircut because the hair is something that throws green screen off. So we've got a good haircut for green screen. Any other questions about these setups or anything else at all? Be interesting to interesting to share the process, though, as I build out this studio. I'm sure it's going to be very relevant to what you're doing as well, Dom. Incidentally, I should say, that I mentioned that there is a large open plan room downstairs, which is going to be my virtual stage, and then there is the upstairs where I'm building the desk studio, but then there is another room, and at some point I'm going to go to start creating some 3D printing videos, because I've got a few ideas now that Elgato have released their Stream Deck modules. I'm going to start creating some of those, some 3D housings for those, I should say. Alan is saying, you've got a question, it's off topic. By all means, go for it. If it's tech related, I might be able to help. Then if not, maybe not. But feel free and ask away if you've got something that I can help with. There's always this awkward lag and delay of 10 seconds or whatever it is with YouTube before I say something and getting any feedback. Even if I did watch it, so if we're back to that program, what it is, Battle for Dream Island. If I watched it, would I make a video on it? If it was relevant to my channel, I would. Otherwise, no. So there we go. I'll have to give it a look, and we'll see. But if it is. If it's something of relevance, then I would, but probably not if it's just if it's not tech related or related to what I'm doing. Any other questions though, tech related, that I can answer? So if not, then I will wrap it up there for today. Going for just over an hour. I am certainly myself personally liking this new time for my streams. Always used to be 5 a.m. on a Friday morning for me. Now I'm starting it to 9 a.m. on a 9 a.m. on a Wednesday, which is a much more reasonable time. Let's just see. There's one more from Don. Let me just make sure I get this one. Do you mind showing your effects you're using on RødeCaster for your pod mic to get it so dry and less echoey? Well, the first thing is mic positioning. So if I was to sit over here, you're going to get a much more of that new sort of echo or room noise. So that's the first thing, is proximity. The closer I come to the mic, the more it gets that sort of deeper, richer sound, and you get less of the room echo. So I get that, having a mic, right in shot is not ideal, but usually the mic is pretty much kind of like 2 fingers away from my mouth. So even if you see me with the mic over this side, then it's pretty much 2 or 3 fingers in off from the side. And the time zone, by the way, I'm in Thailand, so it is 10:20 a.m. on Wednesday for me here in Thailand. I'm from the UK originally, in case you were wondering, but I've been in Thailand for about coming up for 20 years now. So first of all, the proximity to the mic is the first thing. Then on the processing side, if we go over to my effects here, so if I tap on this, it will come up to the effects. First of all, there is the high pass filter. High pass filter is basically allowing more of the high tones to come through than the lower tones. And so what the purpose of this is to sort of knock out any background hum. So I've got things like an air conditioning unit over my left-hand side, and it's down on the main compressor is outside the window. So there is a sort of background hum. So using the high pass filter is basically knocking out some of those lower frequencies. What you don't want to do is set the frequency too high though, because that will knock out some of the tones in your voice as well. So if I turn this all the way over this side, you can hear now that it's knocked out a lot of the lower tones in my voice and is not sounding good at all. So what we want to do is you turn that down to the point where it's knocking out the lower frequencies that are below your voice, but taking out some of that background hum, if indeed you have got any of that in your sound. Next thing then is the de-esser. This basically is reducing the volume at the point at which I say the letter S. So you can see that every time I say the letter S, this thing is dropping down. Not exactly, but more or less. And that is dictated by the frequency here. And so it's intended to reduce this sibilance. So when you say the S sound, you get this S on the mic. So that reduces that slightly. Next effect then is the noise gate. I talked about this earlier, and this is the one where basically I have it so that when I stop speaking, there's no audio comes through at all. If I didn't have this on, you would hear all of the background noise when I'm not speaking. Now, in reality, all of the background noise is still there even when I am speaking, but you're just focused on my noise, so you don't sort of, my voice, so you don't hear the noise as much. The next one then is compressor. The point of the compressor is to sort of slightly equalize the low volume and the high volume in your voice. And so it does that by, if you are speaking over a certain level, over a certain volume, it's going to sort of compress that down and make it slightly quieter. The gain is going to increase that slightly so that if you're talking more quietly, it's going to boost that volume up. Now, what that means is if I whisper or if I talk loudly, there is not a big difference in those two volumes for you as the listener. So it sort of equalizes it out. That's the point of the compressor. The equalizer is then used to adjust specific frequencies like the high, mid, and low tones, and you can adjust those accordingly. It looks like I was demonstrating this at some point because those are off where I would normally have them, but anyway. And then you've got the exciter, and this is two aspects to this. There's what's called the big bottom or the aural exciter. The big bottom is affecting the lower tones. So if I just turn this all the way off, it's hard to say exactly what it's doing. It's not just boosting them. It's doing something specifically with the frequencies, and it's almost like a little black box of what it's doing inside there. But that is with sort of 0% of this effect on. If I turned it all the way up, then it's adding, often people talk about like a radio sound, meaning this certain sound that you get with the lower tones and also the higher tones. This is too much for me. It doesn't sound natural at this point, but somewhere in between is going to be something that's adding some more depth to that lower end without it being completely flat. And then the aural exciter is doing the same, but for the top end, doing something different. But I mean, it's kind of one of these like black box things. If I turn it all the way off, then it's just having no effect. If I turned it all the way on, then it's something that's adding whatever they call it, sparkle and various other different things to the top end. Obviously, if you've got it all the way on, it's a bit too much. So I have that one somewhere in the middle as well. And that's just a case of trial and error to try those out to see what you think sounds better or worse to you. And the last thing that you've got on the processing is panning left or right. So I just have that centered. It's not doing anything. So those are the sort of settings that I've got on the audio processing for the pod mic. But as I say, the main thing though is getting the closeness to the microphone. The proximity should really help with that. Alan, next question, if it's on topic, by all means, tech related, not this topic, but tech related or otherwise, you go for it. 11:17, I guess you were on East Coast, where you are, 11:17 p.m. 10:20 here. Go for it with your question, by all means. And the other thing, just coming back to Don's temporarily here, that thing about the acoustic panels. It's not that every room, that everybody should have, acoustic panels in the same way that I have. It's just that if I'm going to do a video today, what I might do actually is the video I do today in the studio, the quick short, is basically the empty room, and then I'll just put the acoustic panels in there and prop them up against the wall, not mount them or do anything else, but just let you hear the difference. Because if you've got an empty room, you're going to get all of the reverberation off all of the walls. The acoustic panels really help sort of dampen that down and make it so that the room is, really, really, I want to say quiet, but that's dictated by the noise in the room. But I mean, you're not going to get all of that reverberation as well. So that's another thing that helps. Now in here, I haven't got any acoustic panels. I do have lots of boxes piled up, which actually help as well. So if you've got things that are not just flat walls, so like soft furnishings, rugs on the carpet, various different things around, and specifically just thinking about your studio space, you're going to have a set of lights on your main desk. There's a set of lights on the secondary desk. There's some other things going on there as well. So all those things are going to help actually to just kind of slightly diffuse the sound, bouncing around the place in any case. But I will do a video today from the studio, I think, if I get out there, to just show like the before and after, just with some acoustic panels propped up against a wall, because it makes a huge difference. So let's get onto this. Making an object show based on BFDI. Do you have any recommendations for microphones for voice acting? So again, the microphone choice here is it's as much about how you set it up and how you use it. It's hard to say like just straight off, because also it does depend on your voice. What sounds good for one person won't necessarily sound good for another. Yeah, I'm always reluctant to specify something. There is another thing as well about microphone types. So this microphone is a dynamic microphone, and basically it's got like if you think about a speaker, if you think about when you imagine what a speaker is, where you've got like the sort of cone and the speaker sort of moves in and out, and that creates the compression and so on in the airwaves or in the air to project out the sound. All sound is just compression and rarefaction of air that's hitting our eardrums. Well, a dynamic mic, think about it as being kind of like that, but in reverse. It's you're speaking and it is resonating in and out. Now, there is also another kind of microphone, which instead of having the actual capsule, so if I just turn this down a minute, I can't take the front of this one off. I was going to show you the capsule in the front, but in the front of here, there's basically a capsule that, as I'm speaking, it's sort of resonating back and forth. That's going over the top of a magnet in the same way that a speaker's powered by a magnet, sort of bouncing the cone in and out, and that's capturing the audio. Now, there is another kind of microphone. So this is a dynamic microphone. There's another kind of microphone that you may have heard of called a condenser microphone, and that works in a slightly different way. It's still got a capsule, but this has got like a diaphragm in it, and then it's just really sensitive to movements, and that's causing an electrostatic change in the capsule itself, and that's what's capturing the audio. Obviously, this is not a technical thing. I've got a studio masterclass where I go into detail about the different types of capsule. The point about this is, though, you may have heard that people who are using or doing really sensitive voice work will often go for condenser mics because they are more sensitive to the nuance of your voice. And so there is this idea that condenser mics are better at picking up that sort of nuance. And they're also, however, though, because they do pick up more audio, they're not so great at rejecting other noise that's in the room. So one thing that's good about this mic in particular, or dynamic mics, I should say, is they tend to have pretty good like off-axis rejection. And so what that means is if I move around to the side, you're not hearing it pick up the audio quite so much. And if I move further off-axis, then it's doing an even worse job of sort of picking up the audio. So they tend to be a little bit more directional, whereas a condenser mic tends to be a little bit more sensitive. But with that, I think there is almost this myth that if you've got and so what they say is, dynamic microphones, the reason why the SM7B, which is also a dynamic microphone, is great for podcasts, is because they're great for untreated rooms. So if you don't have acoustic panels, you don't have great audio setup, then they're better for those because they're not going to pick up a lot of that sort of more detailed nuance outside of being in close proximity to it. whereas condenser mics will pick those things up. So you tend to associate, people are going to use condenser mics more so in much more treated rooms. But I think that is something that people sometimes dismiss condenser mics for untreated rooms because they have heard this thing that, they're better for they should be used in a more sort of treated environment. In actual fact, if you think about like the Elgato Wave mic, for example, the Elgato Wave 3, it's a side address microphone, which means that rather than speak into the end of it, you're sort of speaking into the side of it. And that's because the condenser capsule or the capsule of condenser mics often is something where you're just sort of speaking into the side of the capsule rather than it being like speaking down the barrel of it. And the Wave 3 from Elgato is a condenser microphone. And actually it is I'm just forgetting the name now. I've completely blanked on the name of the Lewitt. Lewitt is a company who make microphones, and I believe that they supply the capsules for the Elgato Wave 3 microphone. So all of this is completely skirting around your question. The reason why I got onto this was if you are doing something that's specifically about voice and about capturing all of the nuance of voice, and if you have got a treated room, then potentially looking at condenser mics that are going to pick up more of that. However, there's no one mic that is better than others for everybody. It's going to depend on your voice as well. But over a certain level, I think that they're all great, depending on what you're doing. I mean, if you've got a mic that is, like the pod mic or the Shure mics, from this level upwards, they're all capturing great audio at the end of the day. And that's why I've never really done loads of microphone reviews on my channels, because quite honestly, it is hard to tell like the real difference. Now, there are purists who will say, this is a better mic, or they're trying two side by side and they're saying, I'm testing this one and now I'm testing this one and this is the difference, and I'm hearing it a little bit muddier in this one, or this one's a little bit more crisp on the high end, and all these things. And when you listen to them side by side, yes, I get it. And obviously microphones are a real thing that, the one, it can be objectively better than others. But I do think that this area, and it comes back to the question we were talking about earlier with, diminishing returns on investment. If you've got something that's capturing your audio clearly, then that's the main thing. And it's Tom Buck is the guy. If you want to know. Actually, Tom Buck also Podcastage is another great channel. He does almost exclusively mic reviews. So if you go to Podcastage, if ever I want to know about a mic, that's where I'm going, is Tom Buck or Podcastage, because they do really great reviews of these things, and they will go into the details and they'll tell you what you need to know specifically. So maybe that's my answer actually. Rather than me recommend something, is go and check out what Tom's saying. And Tom was also just such a nice, genuine, great guy, as a Podcastage as well. Great folks. Glad that was helpful, Don. Hello there, great to see you. Fantastic to see you stopping by, Chris, as always. Jamie, can I summarize the difference between Ecamm and Riverside for a podcast of interviewing guests? They both can do it. So Riverside is a podcast app. That's, kind of its thing. And the biggest difference that I'm aware of off the bat is Riverside does this thing where, in theory, when you send your link to somebody, they are going to be joining in the browser. So you're running your podcast, you send the link to somebody, they join in the browser, select their microphone and camera. But it does something which is a little bit clever, which is it records on your side as the host, but it also records on the guest side on their computer. And then after the thing is finished, it uploads it, which means technically it's giving you a little bit of redundancy, or at least a little bit of protection against a internet dropout or whatever. So that's one thing that Riverside does that Ecamm doesn't. But Riverside is a lot more limited in terms of layout. layouts, for example. So, you know, you don't have as much control over the scenes that you can create in Ecamm. So like right now I've created this scene with comments. I've got, you know, other scenes that are, you know, sharing my screen if I press the correct button, this one here, or, you know, coming back to here. And you can create all these different sort of views, these different things with different aspects. And, you know, this one would be where my guest would be if I was, you know, running an interview right now. So Ecamm's got a lot more control over the production. The other thing that Ecamm's got, which Riverside doesn't have, is Zoom integration. Now, Riverside runs in a browser for the guest, so you, maybe even for the host as well. Actually, in fact, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so you're both logging in a browser, and then you're giving somebody the link. They log in their browser, select their camera and mic, and that's it. With Ecamm, that's obviously software that's running on the Mac, or if you're using OBS, that's software that's for Mac and PC. As I say, you've got much more control over the production. Now, it used to be that Ecamm only had interview mode, which was this way that you could bring guests in. And although Ecamm was is a program that runs on your Mac, for interview mode, somebody else would join in the browser, much like they would with Riverside. Now, my issue that I had with Ecamm Live interview mode, and there's two issues really. First of all, is the experience for the guest is not as good as the experience for the host, because we get to see Ecamm in full resolution. We get to see all the, you know, the things that are going on. There's zero latency and everything. Whereas actually interview mode with Ecamm, sometimes the person on the other end might be seeing a slightly blurry version, or it might be slightly out of sync. And Ecamm have always said that they prioritize the incoming feed into the production because that's what you want to protect at all costs. The actual production is the most important thing. I've always felt like that's not great for the guest though, because you might be the host with all the experience, and so you're getting the best experience as well. However, a guest might be thrown off, whereas the professional host might not be, but the guest might be thrown off by seeing a blurry image, or, you know, audio slightly out of sync. And by the way, this is not like all the time, it's just occasionally this happens. But I've been on things where somebody's, you know, stopped partway through and said, oh, is this looking okay to you? Because it's looking blurry to me. And I have to explain that, yeah, beforehand, don't worry about it. If it looks out of sync, if it looks blurry, it's all looking fine on my side. So that was always a slight pet peeve that I had with interview mode on Ecamm. But then the other thing is it's running in a browser just like Riverside. And so if somebody is unfamiliar with either Riverside or Ecamm's interview mode, then basically you're giving your guest this experience which is something unfamiliar to them. Now, that for me was solved with Ecamm for Zoom, because Ecamm for Zoom, you're just sending somebody a regular Zoom link. And so if you've got guests coming on your podcast, they just get a meeting invite. By this point in time, you know, most people are familiar with Zoom and how to use Zoom and get into Zoom. It's kind of just pretty ubiquitous these days. So from a guest point of view, they're getting a much better experience now, because we're just using Zoom. They're getting a meeting invite, they're accepting it, they're clicking on the link to join Zoom, they go into their familiar thing. All that's happening though is suddenly when they're in Zoom, you just bring them into your scene that's got you on one side and them on the other. And then that's it, you're creating the production that way. So I still prefer, obviously, Ecamm for this thing. But then there is you know, you could say, well, there's another cost then of Ecamm and also of Zoom if you're going to use Ecamm for Zoom. So there is, you know, there are those things to think about as well. But yeah, Riverside is a great option. Somebody in our academy was looking at Riverside because they've got these real bandwidth issues with although finally that's been resolved, I think, Dan. Yeah, they had these bandwidth issues, and so Riverside was good for them as an option that they were looking at, because it did this local recording on the guest side as well, and then sort of handles stitching it together. So yeah, that's what I'll say about that. I'm still recommending Ecamm because of all the other things that you can do with it. Yeah, Bandrew at Podcastage is fantastic. There's like a few places in there. I don't necessarily watch all of his videos, but whenever I'm researching a mic or looking at something or want to know something, I'll always just go and check out his thing. And the same with Tom as well. They're always you're always guaranteed a good, honest review. That's what it comes down to, isn't it? It's integrity and everything. Val, hello to Jamie as well. And yeah, Ecamm for the win, as Val says. It's still a game changer. You know, it's still they're adding in more things all the way that just make it more and more useful. And I'll be the first to call them out if they drop the ball on anything. But so far, it's pretty amazing and solid all the time. That's why I remain just a total Ecamm fanboy all the time. So let's see. Well, with that said, it is now 10:38 here for me, so I'd better be getting on with some other things. Perhaps going around to the studio to record that quick video summary of the acoustic panel before and after. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you've got any comments after the fact, feel free to drop them into the chat. I look forward to seeing you next week. Maybe next week will be from the new studio. Who knows? Maybe it'll be for an empty studio. But yeah. I'll keep you all posted and see you soon. Have a great day and see you next time.